Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:01. Welcome, everybody. So, just quickly, board norms are maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. So with that, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Under old business, the minutes are December 20th, not November 15th. That is my error.
December 20th, okay.
And under correspondence, I sent you all a letter we got today from Mr. Dunn. So that also is under correspondence, and Mr. Dunn is here tonight.
All right, fantastic. Anything else? Anybody else have anything? No. All right. Moving on to correspondence. So yes, our West River treasurer did send us some correspondence, and of which he was very complimentary of the business office. So appreciate all of your efforts in that. Did you have anything additional to add about that, or?
I just was very happy to hear the treasurer, who gets to do a deep dive of the business office, was complimentary of the work that goes on in the business office. I think it accurately reflects the service that we attempt to provide every day.
Thank you.
And I just would like to say thank you to Mr. Hayden, who spent many, many hours going through those tables, and as I told him, iron sharpens iron, so I did not mind his questions, and it just helped us to become better. So thank you to him as well.
Great, agreed, yes. Thanks, kudos to Mr. Hagee. All right, and then so on to the next correspondence that you alluded to. So Mr. Dunn did send a letter, I believe last night, which you responded to today. If you want to just kind of talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Actually, I think it's probably would be easier if Mr. Dunn just,
yes,
instead of me just trying to put words into Ryan's mouth.
Perfect.
Hi. So my letter last night, I have some deep concerns going forward. I understand with the new guidance, it's probably not as biased towards vaccinated kids. But up until last week, unvaccinated kids had a severe disadvantage when it came to all these protocols. They were in close contact, they had a quarantine for no reason, only because they were not vaccinated. While vaccinated kids got to still go to school, and they could still get COVID and spread COVID. So really, besides no, I guess, scientific reason, I'll give an example. My 6-year-old daughter had to miss school all last week because her 10-year-old daughter had COVID, but because she wasn't vaccinated, she had to miss all of school because she had to be tested. Where she was vaccinated, no test was required and she could have gone. She had no symptoms. So she missed a whole week of school for no reason besides she was not vaccinated. So I have just, the fact that we allowed, I understand on August 16th, this board voted to follow all state, just allow the state to follow all state guidelines, but not once was it ever looked at to say how disadvantaged unvaccinated kids were, which brings me to my discrimination claim of it was completely discriminatory for 4 months that unvaccinated kids basically got punished because of their medical status. So I have some deep concerns going forward. The state just continues to change guidelines and nobody really reads them. It should never be unvaccinated and unvaccinated. It should be all students. This is the guideline going forward for all students, regardless of vaccination status. Even the new guidelines. I know it's not a requirement, but vaccinated kids don't have to be tested for 3 to 5 days after the exposure, where unvaccinated, it's the next day. It's still no scientific reason. I mean, we've learned the Omicron variant can spread within the first few days, but you're not testing those kids in the first few days. So you had an outbreak at the elementary school in the 5th grade. and that defeated all your protocols at the same time. So we can probably get it to on the next part of the agenda for going forward, but that was my whole claim of the school really kind of did not give the unvaccinated kids a fair chance for the first 4 or 5 months of the school year. And I'm hoping going forward, it doesn't have to be a punishment for a medical status. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody want to respond to that? I'm sorry.
No, I kind of want
Go
to
ahead.
respond to it.
Sure.
Whatever happened to the criteria where kids got off the bus, how you feeling, temperature check, all that stuff? Why did we do away with that? Because of time?
Nope.
Because that would have been fair all the way across. If you're sick, you're sick. You can't come to school. You shouldn't get on the bus. That would have been fair all the way across. I mean, my kid's vaccinated. Your kid's not. Run the gauntlet. You know? That's how I'm looking at it, but I could see where where are you taking your discrimination claim, suit, whatever you're doing?
Well, it was at least bringing it to the board that the test to stay program was only for unvaccinated kids. Never once did you test a vaccinated kid. They could come to school no problem on a close contact. Where an unvaccinated kid had to be tested daily at school, where a vaccinated kid did not. So that was my claim, that the last protocol for the test to stay program, never once was a vaccinated kid tested. But unvaccinated kids had to be tested.
But these guidelines are coming down from the state and going to our COVID coordinator. Am I right, Bill?
They're coming to me, the COVID coordinator, principals, all the operations of the school. And so to answer your previous question, when the guidance changed on that, we changed on that. And as Mr. Dunn referred to, the guidance has changed even more. So now we will be implementing test at home because we actually have the materials now. So essentially schools are going to become distributors of tests. Informers of there has been a case in a classroom and access to tests for families. So we just adjust as the guidelines change.
I'm sorry, Ryan, that you kids may have been unfairly educated or not gotten education. But in the last week or so, Jamaica kids all went to school. Well, Newbrook and Townsend kids did not for a couple days, so they could catch ahead on the contact tracing so our nurses could do due diligence and get the job done. It's an overwhelming thing. This pandemic isn't fair to everybody. And maybe I'm not the authority to apologize, but I will. I'm sorry. It's not fair.
Yeah, I guess that is the danger of just allowing whatever the state says to, without actually looking at it and saying, is this fair? Are we giving kids, regardless of a medical status, a fair opportunity at an education? And up until these new protocols, unvaccinated kids did not have the same opportunity because if they were in close contact at school, they had to be tested. Now they could have been positive with no symptoms, but now they have to miss a week of school where a vaccinated kid got to stay. Like, it was just, we're slowly getting back to, if your kid has symptoms, keep them home. If not, send them. Like, I'm glad we're finally getting back to that after 4 or 5 months of this. Like, that's really how it should be, regardless of vaccination status. That's my whole point of it. Is they don't have symptoms, send them. Like,
Well, I understand your frustration and, and your pain. I sympathize with you. This whole thing, this pandemic is all new to all of us, and we're just somehow trying to find our way through it. We can't control what the state dictates. We can probably, if you send letters up to the Secretary of Education explaining how unfair it is.
they stopped responding. So. I've gone as high as I can go.
I mean,
Letters to the governor and I get no response.
going forward, can you work with us so we can try to do better?
Yeah.
And I mean, keep coming to these meetings, keep doing what you gotta do. But we gotta move forward with it.
Go ahead, Drew.
After reading the letter, can I go back real quick?
Sure.
We should announce that our treasurer is not running again. So that's an important piece of the correspondence, so we're looking for a new treasurer. And I just happened to look down and it caught my eye, and I think it's important the public understand, our treasurer is not going to run
And will not accept.
and will not accept a nomination, so
Yes, very, very, very
important point that we
Yes.
missed, sorry.
No, good call out. Very good call out. So, all prospective treasurers out there, please. Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments on that correspondence? The one that we were just talking about? Anybody out in Zoom land? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Appreciate it. And Bill, thank you for your thoughtful response on that as well. All right, members of the public. If there is nothing that is, I'm sorry, if there's something that's not on the agenda, please let us know at this time and we can discuss it or add it to the agenda. If not, just wait until we get to that particular point of the agenda and we can discuss it at that point. All right, moving on to, sorry, go ahead.
I was kind of waiting to see if anybody on Zoom would say anything.
Sure.
So I guess my other point was, we did have, there's been quite a few cases from my understanding at Newbrook. I mean, I'm getting the letter stating I don't even know how many at this point. I understand the hands are a little bit tied when it comes to Vermont guidance, but at some point, can we admit some of these protocols aren't working anymore? My child still got COVID from school, with your masks, with the ventilation, with everything you've put into this. My child still got it. Back when we voted to mask the kids, that was the whole point, was to prevent that. But now all these kids are getting it. My whole thing is, at some point, are we gonna admit that these aren't working?
Well, I know that Drew can speak better to this, but I don't think that masks were ever meant as a fail-safe. There's no 100% guarantee that if you're wearing a mask, you're not going to get COVID. I mean, that's fairly clear. Drew, anything else on that?
Yeah, so the science around masking is, unless you're wearing a medical grade respirator, which are still not 100% effective at filtering out the virus, the chances are that you can still transmit and catch COVID even in a masked environment. It does limit the spread, especially the higher quality surgical masks, certainly more so than the cloth masks, but from a absolute, masks don't provide any sort of absolute protection. They do reduce the spread, but they certainly do not eliminate the spread of pathogens. That's what you're...
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Great. Anything else?
I guess, the state actually kind of leaves it up to, from my understanding from that last letter. All it's saying is that we should. I mean, at what point are we gonna look at possibly lifting that on these kids? Because, as a parent, I don't know how much longer I can continue to see my kid in a mask for no real medical reason. I was told by a school official that is the only thing that can be controlled, and that is why it's still going. You can't control what the state does, can't control that, but you guys can control the masking. I was told by a school official. I'm not gonna name the name. But, to basically come out and say, well, that's the one thing we can control, so we're gonna continue that. It seems like that's the only reason it's still being done. I had to sit there and watch my 6 and 10-year-old, for no reason, be masked during soccer, outdoors, this last season. While I got to see high school and middle school no masks. But for no reason, nobody, just because they tried to say the same thing of the variant at the time. But now the state's saying you shouldn't require masks outside. So like, we're seeing different protocols based on a different division within the district. And for no real explanation, I had to watch that. And I'm sorry, as a parent, that pains me. And I feel the state's not gonna lift it. It says the 28th they're gonna review it, guarantee it's gonna be pushed. Kids are gonna be masked till the end of the school year. Can almost see that coming. So I'm just saying, at some point, are we gonna look at it and say, go back to how it was before? We know all those kids just got sick in Newbrook or got COVID with everything you've done. So I understand you're trying to protect some, but at some point you have to admit you're gonna go back to kids are gonna get sick and gonna have to, kids have symptoms, keep them out. The masks don't really work. That's all I'm saying. I'd like at some point for the board to possibly vote on that again. I don't know how that goes about. I don't know that process, but, as a school board, I'd like to see it voted on again before the state, because the state's leaving it up to school boards to pull it, and it has been done in the state of Vermont. There are districts who have said no more masks, and I don't see cases going skyrocketing anything. So it has been done in the state. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll hear more about it. I'm sorry, go ahead, Drew.
Would it be worth putting an agenda item in to have a discussion about what that protocol looks like for next month?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Revisit the
decision that the board made in, I don't know if it was August or September, but August.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable request.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, so for next month. Perfect. Great, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, student reports. Do we have, I see Ansley up there.
So first, I just wanted to give a little shout out to Jorda, our nurse here at WRED, and I'm sure all the other nurses, especially this week, has been kind of like a week from hell, if you will. A lot of COVID cases and stuff going on, but they've just been doing amazing work to make us all feel comfortable and keep us healthy. So little recognition to them. And I also, Grade just finished their first semester. Definitely been an interesting one. But I think we're all excited for a new start, new classes, new schedule, and just to start on a positive note, I think it's really going to be important for the student body, and I'm definitely going to reiterate that as a leader. What else? Basketball games are back. I believe the girls have one tomorrow, but that's another exciting thing that was gone for a little bit due to COVID. And yeah, that's pretty much all I had written down, but just staying positive during these COVID times.
All right, thank you. Oh, yikes. Ruthie, did you want to add anything?
Wiggle your mouse.
Yeah, I mean, last week was actually the girls varsity's first time having a game this year. We had one on Wednesday against Rivendell, which we won, and then we had a JV game on Friday against Twin Valley, which we won. Though sadly, that will be our last JV game due to numbers of players have dropped. And definitely come out, support us tomorrow night. And we have a few more games this week. I think we have a Friday. We have a Saturday that's away. And it's really fun. Hoops for Hope is coming up. And Wednesday is actually our third week with winter sports, which is really exciting. We're having a lot of fun with that. I think that's it.
Jordan, if you want to go ahead with your report.
Okay, hello. So Hazel, thank you very much for what you said. This year has been worse than last year in terms of COVID. The guidance from the state, it changes frequently, and it's really hard to keep up. We saw a abundance of COVID after Thanksgiving and after Christmas. So we've been just slammed. All 4 nurses have been working really 7 days a week, trying to keep up with contact tracing, answering questions for our students and their families. It's been very difficult. The mask compliance has been difficult with some students still having trouble keeping them on properly. We have some really great families who reach out, and if they have a question, they ask it, which is great, so that they can get clarification of what's going on. And then we have some pretty terrible things that happen to us. Myself, I've been called Nazi, fat ass, ignorant, uninformed. I'm a follower, a sheeple. I can't think for myself. And that kind of rudeness has been really, it came to a head 2 weeks ago. And we're all experiencing that kind of thing. And so that's really tough for us because we're just doing the best. Our job is to, focus on the health and safety of the students and the staff of the school. And we're doing our best. Sometimes we don't meet everybody's needs, and we're sorry for that, but please reach out. We'll do what we can. Abby and I know Sarah and Elise, we've delivered the rapid antigen test to families on our way home from school. We answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday from a family member. We'll do what we can, but we can't do it all. And we're sorry if we can't meet all your expectations. We are so fortunate that we have each other, the 4 of us, plus we have our principals and the superintendent who are just so great to work with. They're so supportive, and we couldn't do it without them. And that's all I have to say. If anybody has any questions, please ask me.
Thanks, Jordan. Go ahead, Crystal.
I just want to say, as a parent, that really breaks my heart that the school nurses are going through that, because we all have a choice. We can choose to send our kids to school or homeschool them. And if we're choosing to send them to school, we have to follow the guidance that our administrators have not said, you have to do this. They're following guidelines from state health officials. I don't want my kid masked. I'm looking forward to it going away. But I'm really angry that somebody would say something so horrible to our staff. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. You guys do a great job.
Thanks, Crystal. Abby, you there? You want to go ahead?
Was that Abby? Okay, sorry. It was muffled. I couldn't hear. No, I think Jordan hit a lot of it. The last, I would say, especially last 2 months has been pretty stressful. working 7 days a week. I can't tell you the last weekend that I actually had off to enjoy, except for this past Saturday, which was fantastic. We are trying our best to be there for families. We know families are frustrated with the new protocols that come out or change daily, as so are we. It's extremely hard to try to keep up with it. We get not everybody believes in what the guidance is, and we totally understand that. And I think we've done a great job to try to support those families, trying to, with the new guidance, trying to keep the kids in school. Like Jorda said, we've delivered home test kits to families on our way home from work. We've gone to different schools to borrow test kits to make sure our kids can come to school. I would say it's heartbreaking to, hear the comments that are directed towards nurses in schools in general, when we are going above and beyond to try to keep the kids safe. I know moving forward, we're going to continue to do our best. Like Jorda said, if you have questions, we're always available. We're always answering. We'll give the best answer. If we don't have it, we always look to Vermont Department of Health to get it. We apologize for the changing in guidance, but like I said, we have no control over that, and we're just doing our best to try to follow it. So we appreciate you understanding where we're coming from.
Thank you. I think I got the thumbs up from Al. Okay. So this is the second draft of the 2023 budget. Not a lot had changed between the first and second draft. There was two things that were added. Last meeting, we heard from the BDCC about a collaborative program, which the board decided to invest in. And also some stipends for school district promotions were also added. So those two things the board had asked to be added to the budget, and there were a few things that I just adjusted, but other than that, the budget really is the same as it was before. Okay? So the new information that has come in are the equalized pupil numbers, and the yield did not change. So it was just the equalized pupils. First run of equalized pupils was under 500 at 493, which the budget committee did review. But since then has gone up to 501. So that is a big jump and really helped out. So the unified tax rate is basically the same as the unified tax rate from last year. $1.81.7. It was $1.81.6 last year. So that coming through the CLAs are definitely have been big news throughout the whole state. And we saw drops in every district. As you can see at the bottom of the summary page, so this is on the budget document that is the FY23 summary. Okay? So that is a list of all of the tax rates that have come through the CLA. And just for a comparison, really, because the unified tax rate is within 1/10 of percent, really the CLA did not have much of an effect on the tax rate, right? So if the tax rate had gone through fiscal year.
If I mute the TV.
She should be coming through the speakers.
1 second, Lori.
Just a little drop there for Townsend, Penny, and then Wyndham, of course, is up the most. Their CLA dropped the most. They went from a 97.83 CLA to 83.75.
Lori, can you hear us?
So that is basically what the budget looks like with the proposed tax rate at this point right now. Are there any specific questions on the budget itself or tax rates?
Lori, I think we have the mic situation figured out if you wanted to come back in. I think we're good, right? No reverb?
But can they hear
And can they hear us?
And you can hear us.
So I can't hear the board.
Can you hear me, Lori? Lori, this is Emily. Can you hear me?
And I can't hear Emily.
Oh, weird. I can hear the board, and the board sounds better.
Okay. All right, come back in, Lori.
That's the best way to answer your question.
Somebody may need to go get her. She doesn't know.
Yeah, Peter's on the way. Oh, no.
No.
Is it again?
We can make sure that she take it out and come on back.
Might be wishful thinking.
When she comes back, her computer has to be muted also, and her mic.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I think she'll just.
Hopefully she'll shut it off. Yeah, sign
We're out
off.
of the meeting, Bill.
Yeah, right. There we go.
Al, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Emily.
You've got a hand up. Just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Thank you. Perfect.
We can talk.
You can't talk. Okay, great. Any questions from the board first before we go on to Fiona? Nope, seeing none. All right, go ahead. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Drew.
What's in the assessment increase decrease line, the 222,000? Just a summary of that.
Sure, so that is the WCSU charges that come through. So most of that 223 or 222, whatever, 222, is mainly from the increase in the MTSS budget, which is the special education and academic support, we're moving into Act 173. So most of that comes from that. It also comes from the ECSE budget as well, that is the early childhood special education budget, a piece of that. And you can find that, do you want me to point out in the budget for you?
Yeah, the offsetting revenues that go with that?
No, these are these are a net cost, right? The revenues are at WCSU.
It's also important to point out, this is the shift from Act 173 to block grant instead of reimbursement for special education, of which is a net loss to the entire SU, which distributes out to each district. So this is the first year, FY23 of budgeting, that we no longer get reimbursement for special education costs. We just get a set amount. And that is $396,000 less year over year for the same level of service. So service went up, reimbursements no longer exist, and our block grant went down. And all of that together brings to that $220.
Or part of it, yeah. So those line items, Drew, are in, they're going to be down in the, through most of the budget into the, the West River part of the budget. So you will see, I can find it here. There's extra. Oh, I'm sorry, it's probably in direct service. Elementary. Oh. Well, let's see what line item it is.
page 5, 1201, 316.
Yeah, part of MTS, I was looking for my note, that's what I was looking for, yeah. So that's one piece of it.
Which accounts for 141,000, correct?
Right, so that is actually included, so that is an offset to it. Okay, special education, it's on line 314. You will see the pre-kindergarten is up 49,183. Elementary and secondary, the cost is just basically split between the two, so 119,000 each. So for a total of 288, but then there was some offset, and then there's some other increases along the way from the assessments.
So I was looking at it, it's a big number that, as far as all of the increases, that's the largest increase that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. We're getting the same service we had at...
So the service has increased.
Right.
And the reimbursement has decreased.
So how much more service are we getting for our $222,000?
The service to the students that have IEPs.
Or is this like a 1 FTE, or like what is it? What actually is it? How do we measure the cost year over year?
So the cost is shared now between all the districts, right? So it's not just West River is getting 1 FTE. It's, the whole special ed academic support budget was up, I believe, to pull it up, but I think it was around 6% in expenses, just based on the needs of the students throughout the whole SU. Okay, and then West River pays a percentage of that. And then add on that the change in the funding formula that is no longer a formula, but basically a block grant now, which, as Bill said, was a reduction of revenue. So it's those two things together.
So the students that we're responsible for require more services now than they did a year ago? Like, is there any way of seeing, like, what are we paying for? That's what I'm trying to get at. Like,
You're paying a percentage of the total cost of all SU special education MTSS costs. That whole pile went up, and the reimbursement that would have come in FY22 went down. And so that variance is $222,000 to West River, which West River is 65% of the overall cost. So 60, could be 67, it's right in that mid-60s. That 222 represents 65% of the total increase year over year. Increase in services. It could be in West River, it could be another member of the SU. But the entire amount of money that comes to offset was also decreased by $400,000, which essentially is about $230,000 of West River being reduced.
Is there anything this board should be doing to get these costs under control? Because that is more than salary and benefits or any other single line increase that we have in our budget.
I think the board is very supportive of the approach that we take curricularly, that we take academic support-wise, and that we take special ed-wise in order to serve the students that we are required to serve and that we need to serve. There are structural challenges. When you have students in different locations, you have services that have to be delivered in that way. But in general, I think this board is unbelievably supportive of serving the needs of the students and requiring the most efficient way that we can deliver that. I believe we're in that process. The WCSU board, and of which this group has 6 of those members, started 4 years ago, looking at Act 173, knowing that those costs were going to change in reimbursement, and have set up a system that I believe serves all the students in an increasingly efficient way, but not one that eliminates those costs when an additional $396,000 simply from a change in the formula comes.
And if I can add on to that, we also, the WCSU board did make the decision to use some of the ESSER funds to actually mitigate some of these costs. So where it would have been basically the year over year for the budget would have been somewhere around $850,000 that would have been split between all of the districts. But because of thinking ahead and smoothing out that increase, because every year, with the funding change, the block grant is going to be reduced. So in order to smooth that out, we used ESSER funds and also fund balance from previous underspending of special ed. If you remember, special ed last year actually had a decrease for the first time in, 10 years at least. So the board decided to use that wisely over the next 3 years.
And then just to follow up, Drew, is that basically the work that the long-term planning committee did and has looked into does create a structure for a more efficient delivery of these types of systems. So it is my hope that that is a continuing process that we can look at how we can make it even more efficient than what we're currently doing.
Seems like every year we look at significantly higher prices for the same services that we got the year before. And I know it's challenging to put the budget together and look at declining student enrollment, but every single year it costs us a lot more to do the same thing we did last year. I know, like I said, from a long-term planning perspective, we discussed the value of a single campus model and the efficiencies that we would achieve, and certainly the educational opportunities for our students. And I think that's playing out what we're seeing here in our budget, which is again, more expenses for what's probably not an overly efficient system. And I'm a little nervous to hear that we used one-time funding to pay down that, because at some point that's going to bite us. We're going to have to pay that bill. So really what we've done is we've kind of prolonged, we've kind of hidden that true expense from the public. So I think it'd be important for the taxpayers to understand that 222 really should have been what? Based on your 60% number, between $400,000 and $500,000.
Yeah.
So realistically, this budget is artificially decreased by another $250,000 for
that is accurate.
Yeah.
Using one-time money, something that will hurt in the future, as well as how much the fund balance you move forward.
Right, about $200,000 of fund balance we used. Strategically, I think that by combining special ed and the academic support, the theory is that we reduce costs by, that is what Act 173 is partially about, right? Is combining those, letting the services be, blurring the lines between the two so that more kids are served at a higher level. So while yes, we're investing one-time money, the theory is that the costs will be reduced. And I think that the costs were being reduced. We, saw that last year with the special ed costs going down. So I think it could, it can happen again like that by combining. And you're right, it's an inefficient service, model for sure. The amount of time that the specialists, the OTPT, spend traveling is outrageous, to be honest, and not seeing students because they're in the car moving between buildings and districts.
can just, my own take on things, anything that starts with ACT never makes anything more efficient. So if you're going to start any conversation or any sentence with the word ACT, and I know Emily's up there, but it never seems to make it better for us. It seems to always end up costing the taxpayers more money for less product. And it's hard to say, yes, special ed costs were going down last year, but now we're looking at really a $500,000 increase for services this year that we've subsidized with one-time federal money. So hold on next year, because it's going to bite us even harder.
Well, I think as Lori explained, the WCSU kind of gave us a 3-year window in order for us to become more efficient over those next 3 years. So will it be less than what it is now or equivalent? No, because like you said, Act 173 gives us a block grant, and it's less than what we have received in the past. So, but we now have a 3-year window to try to improve that.
What was the end game with Act 173? For us to hold our
Publicly or
own?
privately?
You're on camera.
Yeah.
Act 173, the intent of Act 173 was to provide a block grant based on 3 fiscal years, 18, 19, and 20, come up with an average and have that smoothed out till FY25. It was then delayed. FY21 and FY22 is in law to be implemented in FY23. Conceptually, it was to break down the rules and of special education and academic support and other services that could be provided to students that would mitigate learning challenges, which is conceptually a good thing, but that is married with a block grant rather than a reimbursement of the actual service, and that's also frozen in time. So it's frozen in time, FY 20, 21, and 22. So in many ways, having a reduced special ed cost in 22 is not beneficial because it locks in the block grant. And so you have the freedom of the operations, and you have the lock-in cost that the state knows exactly how much they're going to pay year over year, so they have cost certainty, and you have the breakdown of the arbitrary lines between general education, academic support, and special education. Merging those together was the purpose of Act 173. If you look at maybe a 3-legged stool, the other leg of the stool that would have been beneficial would have been the implementation of the weighting study to match this transitionary period. Many of my colleagues have testified that is kind of the missing piece of the implementation of Act 173, is the consideration of how the weighting study plays out with all of that. That was part of the thinking with the WCSU board, was to create an opportunity for the districts to not have, as Drew pointed out, a $450,000 cost, but a $220,000 cost, while the operations could be improved and become more efficient, where structure could be discussed and become more efficient, more opportunities for students, while more efficiency, as well as the weighting study would have time to possibly be implemented. This is all occurring at the same time that we have reduced enrollment, and we expect to have reduced enrollment for the foreseeable future. So there is some downward pressure on the system, which increases an upward pressure on the tax rate. And we haven't even gotten to the discussion of like a CLA or anything like that. I'm just talking unified tax rate.
I'm just concerned that you're going to get caught between a rock and a hard place with this, where taxpayers will push back and we'll have to take away more on the special ed side. We can't touch special ed, can we?
Can't.
So how can, so it has to come from somewhere else.
And I have a question, was it just reduced last year because of COVID? Like, was it because, like, was the reduction last year because students weren't in the buildings as much? Or was it because its needs were down?
No, it was some efficiencies that were gained. That was one piece of it being reduced. You also have to remember that with special ed, you're planning for a budget that is almost 18 months ahead of the budget, ahead of the start of the budget. So, this budget could be drastically reduced or drastically increased, to be honest. If you had a student that needed residential, you're looking at $250,000, right? So you have to remember the time frame of that. But there were some efficiencies that were gained with the reduction last year. And this year, I would say that there are increased needs because of COVID that you're seeing in this budget. Which is why it ties into the ESSER funds so naturally, because that is what the ESSER funds are for.
So it'll help a little bit with the block grant, maybe.
You still have Fiona.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Fiona's still on the
Yeah. Anything else on that? I don't want to close that off, and if we... Yeah. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Fiona.
Hey everybody, where online can I access the second draft of the budget?
Should be on the West River website. Suzanne put it up, I think, earlier today.
Yep, it's on.
The first draft is on there too, Fiona.
Great, thank you. Follow-up question. I just heard reporting that there's at least $900 million surplus in the education fund. Would it be appropriate for the board, like there's lots of talk right now, and maybe this is directed towards Emily, about what that money should be used for? Some have been saying that they're gonna work towards reimbursing taxpayers, et cetera, et cetera. Could we advocate for that funding to help the shortfall in special ed funding?
I'll let Emily speak to that. I'm sorry.
No, that's sure.
But I was just going to say, Fiona, it's 90, not 900.
Yeah, big difference.
Oh, yes, that's what I meant to say. I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, and one thing, Fiona, that I think is important to know is that this budget is built on the conservative estimate that 45 million of that 90 million will be used to offset the yield, which is a big fluctuator in tax rates that people pay. So any communication to legislators or the board might want to include, please continue to plan for that 45 of that 90 million. I do not know the discussions that are happening at that level, but that is the conservative estimate that we received from the AOE and the governor's office about how to build a budget based on the yield.
And that 45 million is what we're basing the basically equalized unified tax rate last year to this year, right? So, yeah. Not the CLA though.
Is that another chunk of one-time money that's subsidizing this budget?
Subsidizing everybody's budget, yeah.
So next year, we're not going to see the $45 million probably, and we're going to end up.
So yes,
potentially, it's my understanding that there's a projected surplus for next year as well. So we'll have to wait and see, but that has been my concern when I've been talking to boards is that you have an inflated yield right now, and you're actually using your yield, right? You haven't had deferred maintenance in a budget for as long as I can remember. So you're using that inflated yield, but you're right, that yield could drop back to 11,000, and which I put on here as a comparison, right? So that would be a 206 unified tax rate. So there's that potential.
Good point.
That's all I was going to point. And when do we know that for certain? So
we don't really even know the yield for this year yet. The preliminary budget collection just came out at 4 o'clock, so I need to submit every approved budget to the state. And once they get a feeling of where those budgets are coming in, they will set the yield. The yield is based on budgets increasing by, we'll say 3.4%, I think is what the yield was built on. So if budgets come in higher than that, then the yield may drop. Or they might use some of the other 45,000. So there's a lot of moving pieces right now on that, but we won't know until town meeting day.
So our budget's coming in at 6.6.
That's right.
So would it be reasonable to expect that districts across the state are coming in at less than that?
Well, we have
I think in the WCSU, our range is what, 1.6 to 27%?
So that's our range right now. I don't know if Fiona's still.
Oh, Fiona, did you still have a question?
No, sorry, I'll put my hand.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Emily, did you want to speak to that as well?
I don't have a huge amount more to add. I would just say that the conversation, the governor proposed using those surplus funds to reduce the tax rate. And I think, there's certainly a lot of interest in trying to mitigate these challenges that we're all facing right now. I am not involved in the conversations at the moment because I don't serve on the education committee anymore. But, there is no question we're all facing some challenges right now. And I would also say that we're also pretty fortunate to have had quite a bit of money coming into the state that has helped us out to offset some of this stuff. And yes, it's one time. And going back to 173, I don't need to reiterate what Bill and Lori said, but over time, the idea for 173 was to reduce costs. And it takes time to do that. And so we need to keep working forward, trying to make sure we're meeting the needs of our kids. And I think that's exactly what this board has been doing and this administration has been doing. But I would encourage us to continue to push forward for what we believe is the right thing for our students, including looking at the weighting study and watching that. I would just mention that that's starting in the Senate and testimony has already been taken on that. It will, if it comes out of the Senate, which I'm anticipating it will come over to the House and we'll take a look at it from there too. But it takes a little time for us. We're entering our 4th week in the legislature. So it's going to take a little bit of time to work through all that, but I recognize the challenges that we're all feeling. And I'm hoping everybody will continue to communicate with us and let us know up there in Montpelier what we need. It's part of the reason why I'm still here right now, to make sure that I'm hearing what happens right here locally. And it's really important to me.
Thanks, Emily. Jason, go through.
So I think it's important to point out that if the yield does change, those two numbers that you put at I guess they're in the middle of our summary sheet. Mm-hmm. And you've got 13% increase with no penalty and 22% penalty with a penalty. Why would there be a penalty or no penalty?
So there's a moratorium, a 2-year moratorium on the penalty at this point. I just put that on there for informational purposes only because from what I understand, once the weighting study is completed and there's a decision made, there will be some sort of cost containment measure put back into place. So right now the threshold is would have been $19,977. I don't know that I have that on there, but that's what I was figuring it on, what it would have been, and fully expect there to be a cost containment measure in the future.
So that's the per pupil, and we're at 23.7.
Right.
So a pretty significant penalty if we weren't in this period of kind of grace period because of the waiting study or COVID or whatever.
Yes.
Got us here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not seeing sunny days. I'm seeing that we've got a lot of, little pieces that are artificially pulling our tax rates down, and we're setting ourselves up for a not very pleasant future. And I see the bottom number, at 0.06%, which we could celebrate, but I think that celebration is based on our future, because this is going to be really challenging when we have, a 12.5% or 12.4% increase in per pupil spending year over year, and that's given the fact that we're artificially deflating, special ed costs. If we were to fully load what this budget looks like, that would probably be a 15-18% year over year increase in our actual cost to deliver education to each student. I guess that's why we started looking at long-term stuff, and I know we stopped that, and we're going to talk about it later, but I think it's important for the public to understand we need to do better. Like, we can't keep putting up 12-15% year over year cost increases to deliver the same education, like the same product next year, at what could be 22% more.
Right. Agreed. All right, any other comments, questions from the board or members of the public?
Howie's got his hand up.
Go ahead, Howie. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Still can't hear you.
When this merged board was formed and everybody was saying this was going to be a great cost containment measure, I tried to tell you that it really wasn't. Costs are going to go up, and costs are going to go up if you go to a single campus. Costs are going up. If you compare the cost per pupil at our school, our projected $23,000 a year, we're still a full $10,000 a year under Putney School or Vermont Academy. We keep wanting to provide more, better education for kids, and we keep wondering why it keeps costing more money, but that seems to be the nature of things. Right now, we're in a high inflation period. Everything is getting more expensive. I've always tried to hold the line on the cost per pupil percentage increase, but I don't think there's anything we can really do about it at this point. So I'm going to support this budget as it's written and hope that, the voters go for it. I also want to say that to Emily and any other legislators that are listening, this system, I've been going through this for 20 years. This system of funding schools is just terrible. When I think of all the energy we put into creating these budgets and bringing them to the people and squeezing these nickels, and that this is going on in 60 districts across the state, 60 supervisory unions, actually more districts, each one with its own budget and its own checkbook and its own financial advisor. This is a terrible, terrible way to fund schools. And it's bad for everybody in the state. It's bad for the kids, it's bad for the educators, and it's bad for the taxpayers. In Windham, we're looking at a huge increase in property tax. It's merely because a couple of people sold their houses for a higher value. It's not fair. It's not fair to the schools. It's not fair to the taxpayers. So I hope, Montpelier is listening and trying to find a better way of funding schools than what we're doing right now. But in the meantime, I think, I'm going to support this budget. So thank you.
Thanks, Abby. All right. So any other discussion, questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Do we split this budget? When do we have to do that, or we don't have to do that anymore?
You all don't have to do that, and the voters only vote on one article. I have to split it on my end, because the state still looks at it as an A and a B because of Wyndham. West River A and West River B, the primary, secondary.
But it only goes on the ballot as a single budget now?
Single on the ballot.
We amended the Articles of Agreement at the last
Right.
opportunity.
Yep. Yep, good point. All right, so we kind of have a decision to make if there are no other questions, whether or not we go ahead and vote to approve this budget now, or we move forward with another budget meeting to discuss further. What benefit would there be for another meeting, and what other information would we have?
The only other information will be a difference in the yield, but other than that, and the equalized pupils they're still having problems with the census data, but this is a pretty solid number from what I can tell. Much better than the first poll that they did. So it's just those two things that could affect it. Pennies either way, probably not a large amount of money, unless something drastic happens with the yield. But I don't foresee them making a big change when people are this far down the road with their budgets.
Okay.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead, Emily. Sorry.
Sorry, thanks. I just wanted to mention one thing about the yield, and Lori will correct me if I'm wrong, but this is actually no different than any other year with the yield. We have to wait for budgets to come in before we can do a final on the yield. And so this is a typical process that we go through every year, and we won't absolutely know until actually June 30th when all budgets come in. That's the real figure. But it gets closer and closer and better as we get through town meeting and all that. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood this isn't any different than any other year on yield. And I'm going to echo what Howie said as well, that I recognize that these are challenging times, but I do think that there's going to be continuing supports from the state in whatever way we can. I know there is recognition. I talked to the Ed Committee. I just talked to the Ed Committee chair today. And I know there's recognition that there are challenges, and we're going to do everything we can to support our local school districts as we go through all this process. And I am going to join Howie in supporting this budget.
Thanks, Emily. All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll second it if you make it.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget as presented tonight.
I'll second
it. Discussion?
Emily and Howie have said it pretty well. I mean, Drew makes valid points that there are problems here and that we need to continue to make and continue to talk to the our taxpayers, and that, there do need to be changes, there do need to be efficiencies, and we do need to, continue to work on this. But for now, I think we're doing what's right for our students and our taxpayers.
Thanks, Joe. Mike?
I agree.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion?
I just got one thing to say.
All right.
I'm going to say.
Let's hear the COLA.
You know what's coming.
It's slightly over the COLA you're ready.
Here comes the COLA. That's right. I'm going to vote no because you can't keep it under the COLA. And, and granted, it's under the inflation rate. I'll give you that. It is under the inflation rate. But who's going to suffer for this most? But our elderly taxpayers. They're going to suffer the most because they're only getting so much of an increase this year, and we're taking more of that. It's bad enough the government messes them over with it's a 7% increase in inflation, and we're going to give you 5.9. So you're only another 1.1% in the hole. You're actually making less money than you made last year. And it's been going on for decades. We had the highest COLA we've had in decades. And we can't even keep under it. Last year we had a COLA that was what? 3.1? 1.3, something like that, and we were under it. Think about that. So that's why I'm voting no on this budget. But just bringing that up. Other than that, good work on the budget, Lori.
Thanks, Ken. Knew that was coming. All right. Oh, Ann, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to note, I see something in this budget that gives me hope that we are going in the right direction in controlling costs, and that is adding the Journey East program director. And I looked at the job description and noticed that that includes grant seeking. I think grant seeking is an excellent way to offset taxpayer funds. So nice addition there. And so I support the budget.
Thanks, Ann. All right. Any other discussion before we take the vote? Okay, seeing none. I'll start out in Zoom land.
Al, can I just say one thing? It's related to something Ken just said, and I just wanted to ask Lori. Lori, income sensitivity is still in place, right?
It is, yes.
And could you just give a little summary of that for folks who are on income, who are paying their school property taxes on income sensitivity?
Sure. If you earn $47,000 or less, you pay only on your income. So usually that's right around 2% that you pay on income. From $47,001 up to, I'm not sure if they raised it this year, but it was $126,000. You pay on your property. However, you also get a property tax credit. So you're not paying on the full amount of value of your property. Anything over that, and you are paying on the full property value.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear that had not gone away for folks who are living on a fixed income.
Thanks, Emily. Go ahead, Drew.
Isn't part of that formula that the overage over the, there is an additional charge for high spending districts to even the income sensitive people?
That would have been the penalty?
So it's because we have no penalty, there is no.
That's correct.
So they get a buy this year, Ken.
They don't, because they're still making 1.1% less than they did last year. So whatever, the buy doesn't increase every year with.
Hold on, it's gonna be twice as bad next year.
Yeah, probably.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. Let me go out into Zoom land. Emily.
Yes.
Ian.
Aye.
Howie.
Aye.
And I think that is it. Ken.
Nay.
Leanne.
Aye.
Drew.
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Aye. Joe.
Aye.
Okay. What's the count on that, Bill?
9-1 with Lindsay was on, but is not on now.
Oh,
She's having
okay.
internet problems.
Is she? Okay. Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Appreciate. Yes, of course.
Could I get a motion for the officers to sign a warning?
I move to have the officers sign a warning for the budget vote.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dana. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. Emily?
Yes.
Thank you. Ann?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Maybe against the percentage, but I'm not against the procedure.
Well said. That might go in the paper. All right. direction to administrators. Was that the?
That was
sorry.
if they were going to have an extra budget meeting. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, long-term planning. So, coming out of our last meeting, we have hired a facilitator, and we'll start meeting with that facilitator on February 7th. And actually, small correction here, it will be at, I believe Les said 6 p.m. was the time that he's able to meet. Between now and then, we would like to meet with Les and certainly have somebody from the Long-Term Planning Committee join us to help kind of create that agenda and path forward. So if there's somebody on the Long-Term Planning Committee that would like to join us, we would start to look at dates and times between now and February 7th.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Dana. Appreciate it. All right, so we'll loop you in. So that'll be the officers and yourself, and we'll meet with Les. So the second question on that is, obviously in full disclosure, we leave it up to the full board to decide whether or not we want to have minutes taken on Zoom. Now this meeting, I'll just preface it with that we're going to be creating an agenda for it'll be an in-between meeting, right? So we'll have on February 7th, we'll have the meeting, and then in between, officers and Dana will kind of discuss what happened out of the last meeting, any follow-ups, create the agenda for the next meeting. Simple as that. But if we want to have minutes and Zoom for that, glad to do it. If somebody wants to make a motion one way or the other, glad to entertain that. Or any initial thoughts?
I'd say given the very strong criticism of not being open, I would suggest that they be recorded and Zoomed and.
Okay. Perfect.
Minutes taken.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion?
Sure.
And second? Okay. Any discussion? Or you kind of already said it, but.
Ann's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, sorry, just technical issue. I couldn't hear what time you said the board is meeting with the facilitator.
Oh, sorry. It'll be on February 7th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Yep. And then obviously full board, full open meeting. But so yeah, the other meeting will be at some point in between 6. He's got 7 written
Yeah,
there.
it says 7 on that.
Yeah. Les came back with 6. Yeah, so the meeting that we'll have in between, right now there's a motion and a second to have that also have a minute taker as well as be on Zoom. So any discussion on that? Other further discussion? No? Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a vote starting with Zoom. Emily?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Aye?
Yes, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. So, Bill, if we can get a minute taker, Peter set up for that, and Zoom, we'll figure out would that preclude this week then, maybe if we wanted to give Peter?
Give me the date and time, and I'll.
We'll try to hash it out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Okay. Moving on to chair to sign contract.
We have a long-term FMLA meeting. So we have an employee of the West River District who will be out on leave. So we need to hire a replacement, and I just need a motion for the board to sign the contract for that person.
Go move.
Second.
Okay. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Ken. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none. Emily?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Dana? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Do you have that here, or do I need to swing by the office?
I did not bring it with me, so you can just look on it.
You got it. Absolutely. Okay. March 22nd, public informational
So our vote
meeting.
is on March 23rd, which is a Wednesday. Last year, we did the public informational meeting the night before via Zoom, only Zoom. That is allowed under the new law signed by the governor. I need to know if the board wants to do it like this, in public, and Zoom, or just fully Zoom. I just need to prepare for it, and you guys need to make a decision.
Thoughts, folks?
There's no echo, hybrid's fine.
I'm sorry?
If there's no echo, hybrid's fine.
Don't we have to have a physical location, or has that been changed?
No, the law allows for not to have a physical location. So I just wanted to know what you guys want me to prepare for and plan for.
Hybrid.
Hybrid seems the easiest.
Okay.
Get a nice big space in case a bunch of people want to show up. And
You need a motion on that, or?
I would like one, because then I can give the
That
direction.
we have a hybrid budget informational meeting on the 22nd.
Meaning
March.
Zoom and in person.
Zoom and in person,
Great.
hybrid, yes.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dana. Any discussion? No?
Ann wants to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ann. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, giving you the Zoom world perspective, I'd say that the hybrid technical issues were pretty serious at the beginning of this meeting, and I don't know how well that would go over with the public. So just as long as we're confident that we've got that figured out, I'm fine with hybrid, but just a caution on that.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
we've run
Thanks,
Zoom
Ann.
meetings for
That's a
2
good
years.
point.
We've run Zoom meetings for 2 years without issues. Tonight was an anomaly.
Yes. Gremlins are in the room.
Yeah.
Scotty.
Go ahead, Scotty.
I just got a text from Fiona Chevalier. She'd like to be let back in the meeting. Is there any way somebody could do that for me?
I got it.
Thank you.
Oops.
Oops.
You're all in. Thanks, Scotty.
Very good. Okay.
Okay. All right. So motion on the table. Are we ready to vote? Any further discussion? No? All right. Go ahead, Emily.
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Leanne?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Dana? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Awesome. All right, we're rolling. E, so this is a new part of the law. This is only for districts that have to commingle the vote. Currently, right now, under the law, you'd have to physically take the votes from Wyndham and Brookline, Newfane, Townsend to our school district director, who's in Jamaica, Sarah. There's a provision that if you all make a motion, that they can just report the totals, and then our school district clerk will commingle those votes. It will never be reported publicly what were the individual votes, but they don't have to physically bring over the votes and do that. But that is for the board to decide. It would be the preference of the school district clerk, if that could be possible.
Just a quick question. Did we have to pay for travel time for folks to actually bring the votes, or any cost? I mean, obviously, it's more efficient and expedient.
I don't remember.
You paid an hourly rate, but I mean, just for convenience for the clerks alone, I would make this motion.
Yeah, that sounds.
One time was late.
Yeah, yeah.
It is challenging.
Oh, this is awesome.
ahead,
for the
Joe.
clerks. Yeah, I make a motion that we do not have the clerks physically get in one place and commingle these ballots, and follow the new law.
So you see the highlighted section there?
The highlighted section, yeah. I move that the ballots for the 2022 annual district meeting shall not be commingled before counting.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Leanne.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So how is that not going to be public information? Because communication between them will be public information as soon as they make it.
So, one clerk will speak to the other clerk, and The communication between the clerks prior to that will be that this is not to be distributed publicly. But you're right, I cannot guarantee that.
How can you guarantee no voter fraud? Just throwing that out.
Each individual clerk will guarantee
Each
that.
clerk, so the clerk in Brookline
Sunday.
would count them. They've recorded it.
Okay.
They call up to the West River School District Clerk and report those.
Okay.
That one person would then have, would be the center of the wheel, would have all the votes, and would simply provide the total.
Okay. Just throwing that out there.
No, Drew's point.
So,
Right on.
so let me get this right. So then all they do is say, okay, if the total was X amount for, X amount against.
That's
the budget. They don't say that, for example, the town of Townsend voted, 90% of Townsend voted no on the budget.
Well, the Townsend clerk will report to our school district clerk
Right.
what the results were
In that town.
in Townsend.
Right.
And our school district clerk will collect from Brookline, Townsend,
I got
Wyndham, Newfane, and then merge them all together into one total.
And that's the one that will be certified.
And that's the one that will be certified, and that's the one that will be reported. I think what
And
Drew
once they
is
report
pointing
it-
out is that we're adding communication to a system that before was simply a physical ballot. And there
So-
is,
I think the expectation will be that we will have separate votes. So those numbers will become public. If they're being done at separate places by separate ballot counters and then sent out, we're going to lose what we have now, which is commingled. Nobody knows which town voted in favor or against. It is likely, based on my experience with small towns, that we will know exactly which town voted in favor of and which town did not. So that's, I think we have to understand that's what we're accepting.
which is the point of having the commingled vote.
Correct.
So that's why it is the board's decision. The law just allows for it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Ken.
No, I'm good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Saw the pen.
That was how Leland and Gray's votes were for years, and you knew which towns voted which way.
It didn't really make that much difference on the Leland and Gray budget.
I have a question. What happens if we have to do a recount?
We keep all the physical ballots.
Okay. So each clerk will keep the ballots.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good question. I'm pretty sure each town has like 2 people, right? And the towns have their own procedures for how to make sure they accurately count.
Yeah, everybody's going to know.
All right, eyes wide open, we got it, yeah. All right, any other questions? Comments? Nope, okay. Emily?
Aye.
Ian?
Abstain.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll let Sarah know.
So we got, what was the count on that? We had one abstain.
Nine.
8, 1, and
One missing.
No.
1 missing.
Don't
I'm sorry, 9, 1.
Don't tell Anita we did this.
No, we had 1 abstention, no names. 9 abstain, missing.
Yes.
Thank you.
One missing.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks. Moving on to old business. And as amended, approve the minutes of December 20th.
Second.
Thanks, Dana. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move on to a vote. Emily?
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to principal reports. And let's see who we have out there.
Cody.
All right, well, any folks want to speak to your amazing reports? As Joe says, they speak for themselves. Yeah.
I would like to say something briefly about there's an addendum to the back of my report to regarding the Jamaica school, and I wanted to just bring it to your attention. I went to a budget meeting a few weeks ago, and I presented this. We have a number of students right now. We're at 20 students, but this year we're going to be graduating 7 fifth graders. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of the size of the school and what's happening next year. And I put together 4 models, and these were like the 4 things that I could think of that we could possibly do in response to this data. And I suggested that Model 1 and Model 3 would yield less than ideal and significantly inequitable results. So I basically was recommending that we go with 2 or 4. And the budget committee decided to, they asked me to go ahead and go with Model 2, which would give us the most flexibility as the data becomes more real. I mean, one thing that I've learned just in my short time as a public school principal is that responding to population data right now could, making hiring decisions right now could yield poor results later. So what we'll be able to do now is we'll be looking to hire after the budget passes. We'll be looking to hire or to make sure that we have 2 teachers at Jamaica Village School. And then we'll be splitting the students in as equitable a manner as we can. I'll be trying to stay with the K2 3 to 5, but again, I mean, 3 students in a K to 2 class doesn't really allow for equitable results. So we probably would go with a 6 and 7 model if the data remains consistent. I also wanted to bring to the attention that we did luckily get 2 great new students over the last month. However, they're not going to stick around. So these numbers are going to, as far as I'm concerned right now, are appropriate and consistent. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. We are going to be moving forward with a 2 teacher model, the same kind of operational model as we have this year.
Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate that. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that while we had the budget discussion further up. So appreciate you bringing it up.
Sure thing, buddy.
Thanks. Bob, so I hear there's a lot of good stuff going on with project-based learning.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to cover my lack of having a report by actually giving you some good news. So I apologize. You got my email. So I'll be the thorn between the 2 roses here as far as getting the reports done. So I just wanted to just give you guys a quick update. I know when the Long-Term Planning Committee began exploring the idea of an immersion center in Jamaica, a lot of people were intrigued by that conceptually for lots of reasons around the engagement of kids and just new and innovative ways to think about teaching. So I wanted to just give you guys a quick overview that we have been doing this year, a pilot of project-based learning days. We have had really 8 days, 8 Wednesdays. So the first semester, we have 8 more coming up in the spring, where we divide our high school kids into some groups and we do some project-based learning. We have recently, adopted an approach that we want to push forward for next year, which has an expansion of that. And talk a little bit about the middle school this spring. They're also going to be rolling into some curricular project-based learning within their classroom settings. One of the things that we're exploring, and I just wanted to give you guys a heads up, is we are exploring the potential of having, this year we've had some late arrivals for kids with the opportunity for teachers to do some collaborative time to help plan out those units. We are looking to, in expanding the PBL opportunities, to expand those late arrivals as well. I will come back to you guys with more details about that probably at the next meeting. But just know that's something that we are considering. I have some transportation estimates being driven up to see about running a second bus run and some ideas being discussed around having activities for kids to do if they were in the building. But again, trying to expand the concept of project-based learning with additional professional learning, coaching, and teacher collaboration to create pretty cool and authentic programming for kids. So today we talked about what we're doing for the spring during the in-service day and talked to the teachers about the plan for next year. And they were very excited about it. There are a few minor tweaks we want to talk through, but I'm excited about expanding it. People are, pretty enthusiastic. We took a lot of student input and teacher input from the fall to really plan the spring and moving forward. So those of you that have been around for a while, this is a culmination, or I say a culmination, an evolution of the design thinking work that we did my first year as principal, where we explored the question of how do we take a small school and create opportunities for kids that are personalized and unique in a way that would set us apart within the state. And so we're continuing that work. This is sort of the next logical phase of it. And we'll be back to tell you more about that and probably do a little presentation and give you some student feedback that we got from the first round and share more with you at a future meeting. I knew the budget thing could be long. I didn't anticipate Echoville, but we'll try to do it at a time where there's maybe a little bit less on the agenda to give it a little bit more time. So I think you'll really want to hear about it. So that's where we're at.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. That's very exciting stuff. Craig, did you want to, I'm sorry, do you want to leave out Townsend?
Yeah. So I don't want to really talk about Townsend or at school, but I also want to just put back out that working with Nurse Jorda and Nurse Abby in the last few weeks, as Crystal said, it was disappointing to hear that there were some insults coming through emails and phone calls and stuff being made to them. I spent last Friday and through the weekend talking to them just to make sure we had contact tracing done and test to stay complete and contacting families and answering questions. And I just, again, I want to put it out there, what just a wonderful job that they're doing and going above and beyond. It was something that I heard earlier, driving test kits to people's houses, families' houses, staff houses. We're very, very lucky to have them. And I just want to use my time to acknowledge them one more time.
Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate that. And I'm sure they do as well. Thank you. All right. Any questions for the principals? All right, moving on. Phil.
So provided you the written report, just a couple of things to keep in mind. The Waiting Study Task Force, which is very important to West River, has given their ideas to the legislature, is going to be running through, Emily can probably correct me about the specificity, but it'll be brought through multiple committees. So it's a long process. And just in general, there are two ideas that the task force has brought forth. One is to implement the weighting study with some updated weights, working with the researchers that did the original study from 2019. The one is implementing weights. The other one is a new construct that the task force came up with called cost equity, which is actually block grants to specific categories of students. So the easiest one is if the weights of a student in poverty increased from 1.0 to 2.5, then there would be an equivalent cost of actual block grant dollars of students that are in either of those categories. And the idea was brought up during the task force, so it has not been run through a research lens at this point, but they did use the research from the weighting study to come up with the cost equivalent dollars. The challenge with a block grant is it would operate similar to current block grants that would have to be decided on an annual basis. So they would be dependent on the makeup of the context of the legislature at that time and the context of the environment and decisions that are made. Whereas a weighting study implementation would simply be to load those weights in and keep the exact same system we have. So that's kind of, that's very rudimentary. I'm sure Emily's way more versed than I am. But that is kind of the discussion that will be shared in the legislature. And I think that is the most important, one of the most important things that's happening for West River right now, and the thing that I'm paying the most attention to in the legislature.
Yeah, I heard Tammy Colby's testimony the other day in front of the Senate, and yeah, pretty much exactly as you said.
That's where I get my time.
You're kind of at the whim of the legislature if you go with.
And granted, you're at the whim of a legislature every year, right? Yeah. A budget, all that kind of stuff. So right. It's kind of nuanced, but it's just an important conversation that will be happening.
All right. Approve the financials. We have some numbers.
We have a couple, don't we, Joe?
So we have the one, right?
I thought we didn't get to the other one because you needed to review it, or was that the one?
I sent mine back. There was only one this right now, right?
Just the one?
The one,
Right.
yeah.
Cool.
The 195.
Oh, it's just over 2. But...
201.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you got it, Dennis?
Yeah, I got it.
I'll second it.
I printed it out.
Oh, thank you.
To make the motion to approve financials pay voucher for $201,288.33. Is that the right one?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion in a second?
Yeah.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none. Emily?
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Howie?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ian?
Aye.
Drew?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
One question before I use the office. So much you can do, just sitting in front of that paper.
Yeah. Yes. You prefer not to have it emailed? You would rather have it emailed? Okay.
But it works for me.
So Donna will send an email to both of you, and then you can just.
Yeah, I'll just, because the paper, it goes through so much quicker than trying to do PDFs on 2 screens. I'll give you some cover inside.
Whichever you prefer.
But I like to eat it.
There you go. All right. Oh,
You can accommodate them.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. IntraSU school choice.
So this is just a reminder to let you all know that on Wednesday, the WCSU board will be meeting. They will be discussing implementing a pilot program for IntraSU school choice. Just so you understand the process, if the WCSU board votes to pursue that, they would then direct me to talk to an attorney to draw up an MOU, which would then come all back to your board. Then this board would have to decide that you want to participate, and then make a motion to allow the chair to sign the participation in the IntraSU choice. At its most elemental level, ADM stays with the district that it currently is within, that each district gets to decide anything above the minimum of letting 5% out and 10% in. So for West River, that would be 25 students out. Again, you would keep ADM, and you would allow 50 in, while also being able to declare which classes and grades have space, just as we do now with West River. So when West River goes through their choice time in March, we look at the list of all the schools, we account for kids joining after choice, and we provide so many slots. The same thing would be done at the SU level.
Time frame.
And the time frame, that will be in April. So intra-district choice in West River will happen in March. Intra-SU choice would happen in April. So the representatives from this board that will be going on Wednesday, I wanted to just leave another opportunity for any board member to give any opinion to those board members that will be coming to talk about it. But I also wanted you to understand the context, that Wednesday is going to be a discussion to basically spend some money to get an MOU to bring back to you all, and then you guys will decide if you want to post it. So that's why.
I have a question.
And then I see
Why do we have to hire an attorney? Are we the first district to go through this?
Yes.
There we go.
Can we wait till somebody else goes through it before us and then borrow theirs?
I don't like being trailed with that much money.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ann.
I just want to say I'm not a fan of this because I think it could be very hard on the smaller schools like Jamaica.
Thanks, Ann. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I have a question. So we're doing 5% out, or no, 5% in? What was that?
5% out, 10% in.
5% out.
But that can be changed on Wednesday night. That is the model that has been presented.
Okay, so well, that's what this board needs to know, that it can be changed from those numbers.
You bet.
And why are we 5%? Wait, 5%?
It was just taken from the public high school choice law.
Oh, so but it also is elementary.
This will be for elementary, and it is the floor. So for example, the discussion in Wyndham, which has 16 students, they would like their own personal floor of participation to be 50% out and 50% in. That allows them to have 2 teachers and plan for between 8 and 24 students, which doesn't force them to hire anybody new, allows them to keep their ADM, but they can participate at a higher rate. So that's why it would be a minimum.
Yeah, I just want to add that I know Wyndham, there are kids who want to transfer into Wyndham if this program it gets approved. So, and it cuts both ways for small schools. There are people who want to get their kids into a small school.
Does it apply to preschool?
No, just kindergarten. Because there's already a universal choice program for pre-K.
Really?
After 166, beginning with an AC and a T.
So a student that lived in Newfane could send their kid free of charge to Dover's program?
For 10 hours.
No, to their entire program.
They could not, yes.
So then it's not the same. And I would suggest that we.
It is different, yes.
So that wherever those students start.
That absolutely could be an addition. Yeah. This is not written yet or set in stone. So that I would say that's one of the representatives to bring that up on would not be. The challenge would be the ADM versus the service. So ADM is only 0.46, but you would then be providing a full, essentially 1.0 service. So that would the board would just have to decide.
That's been applied to pre-K.
Correct.
But the proposal does not include pre-K at this point.
At this point, it does not.
Okay.
That's a good clarification.
Well, considering I'm going to be at the meeting, I'm like, let me make sure I've got this straight.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Any other thoughts, discussions going into the meeting?
Any thoughts from our public?
I'm looking out there, looking for hands. Okay. All right. Seeing then, we'll go ahead and move on. Before we hit that last one there, it says adjourn. There is a second page here. It says list a number of meetings coming into meeting season. January 31st, we will not have that meeting. We do not need it. February 7th, we will.
6 p.m.
6 p.m. for that.
Yep. We will squeeze a meeting in between now and then for the agenda building. So that's TBD. And then our next regular board meeting is February 14th.
And then we want to confirm on February 7th, the March 7th meeting.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
March 7th meeting?
Yes, which will be the long-term planning, the first Monday of every month.
You're moving.
It's not on here. You're adding it.
I am.
I think that's what the 14th instead of the 21st because of President's Day, right?
Because you don't, well, you guys can, no, this is why it's on here. You guys can do it the 21st. It's just, you'd have one on the 21st.
Oh, that's right.
You'd have one, and that would be your statutorily required budget information meeting. And the 22nd is your public informational meeting when they go through the warning. And then the vote is on the 23rd. And so the reason I'm suggesting you do it on the 14th is you provide more time at that meeting to have your budget informational meeting at 6, and then you can roll into your regular meeting, rather than Monday, Tuesday. But
yeah,
again,
Wouldn't that be March 14th, not February 14th then?
no, because you're going to have February 14th because February 21st is vacation week, President's Week.
Okay, so that's what I asked that, and then you said no, because then we would have the meetings on 21, 22, 23.
Oh, I was talking about.
We're talking about February, we were blending February and March. I'm like.
They are kind of a blur.
Yeah.
So you got February 7th, February 14th, March 7th, which is the first Monday of the month for long-term planning. March 14th, which will be your budget information meeting, followed by your regular meeting. Everybody clear on that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The 22nd is your annual meeting informational meeting, which rolls into your vote on the 23rd.
So basically every Monday in March.
Well, you're not meeting the 21st.
When's town meeting?
Town meeting is on the 1st. Tuesday the 1st.
Okay, so we got 1st, 7th, 14th. Basically every week.
Yes.
Okay. How's everybody feel about that? And then do we want to have instead of the March 14th, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd? Feels like kind of a bunch, but.
Well, you gotta have the March 22nd, 23rd.
Right.
So.
But it's a matter of the 14th to the 21st, or keeping it there, allowing for a little breathing room.
I used to combine my monthly meeting with the budget meeting. Just have a budget meeting and have part of it go directly to, it switches over at one time to just budget meeting, and this way you eliminate the whole, and just try to make it a shorter agenda for the, an hour-long agenda for the regular meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's the one to host on the 14th or the 21st.
Right.
It's just if the board wants to do back-to-backs. I was just looking at an opportunity to space it out and have people have, because Tuesday is an odd day, right? So then you'd hit a Monday and a Tuesday, they want to be back-to-back, but I mean, you guys know better than I do. It doesn't, and you really don't have to decide that until, but I'd like to let people. I got to put it on the warrant. So.
Yes. And spreading it out makes sense to me, but
It makes sense to me too.
Whatever you guys want to do, I'm good.
What do you want to do?
It's what we want to do. Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So then we'll entertain that last motion.
Move to adjourn.
Mike? Emily?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Ken?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye. David? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, folks.
Good night.
Good night.